All aboard the small diaphragm condenser train, because I am back with a review of the SE Electronics sE8. This microphone costs about $280. I did buy it with my own dollary dues. If you want to check it out, I'll throw some links in the description. All of my recording settings will be listed in the doobly-doo as well as the description too. And now let's talk about what comes in the box. What a shocker, you are going to get the microphone, a foam windscreen, the microphone clip, a 5/8 to 3/8 inch microphone stand adapter, a little bit of documentation, and some stickers. Then as far as the build quality, the microphone feels good and I don't have any real complaints here. It has an all-metal body as well as a tiny mesh grill covering the diaphragm. On the side, you have two switches, one being your high-pass filter, the other being your pad. The capsule on the sE8 is removable, so you can use the omnidirectional capsule if you have that. On the rear, you have the XLR port, and if you care at all or not, this microphone is made in China. I'm not going to read all of the specs to you, but I will have them up on screen so you can pause and take a closer look at any of the graphs, and I will also have all of the specs listed in the description so you can take a closer look. Now I'm spinning around the sE8 to 90 degrees to show you the off-axis rejection and coloration. Continuing around to 180 degrees, this is the rearish of the microphone. Continuing around to the second 90-degree angle, there we are, and then rotating and ending at the front of the mic. Now let's see how the sE8 handles plosive rejection, but if you're not using the windscreen and you breathe on it, sounds like the world's ending, so use a pop filter and or use a windscreen. But here is how it performs with the provided foam windscreen. Please bring pizza pronto. Please bring pizza pronto. Please bring pizza pronto. Still not great. Now I am right on top of the microphone with the windscreen installed, and here is how it sounds as I try desperately not to clip. Now here is how the mic sounds 6 inches away from my mouth. Here is how I sound 1 foot away from the sE8. Now I am 2 feet away from the SE Electronics sE8. And now here is how the sE8 sounds 4 feet away from my stupid pie hole. Now I am typing on a keyboard with Gatoron blue switches to see how much of my voice versus how much of the keyboard it picks up. And for the gamers, now I'm typing on the SAD W and spacebar keys. Now here is how the sE8 sounds 6 inches away from my mouth in a fairly well-treated room. And now here is how the microphone sounds about 6 inches away from my mouth in a completely untreated room. Now here is how the sE8 sounds being underboomed 10 inches away from my mouth in a relatively well-treated room. Now here is how the microphone sounds being underboomed 10 inches away from my mouth in a completely untreated room. Here is how the sE8 sounds being overhead boomed about 10 inches away from my mouth in a relatively well-treated room. And now here is how the microphone sounds being overhead boomed about 10 to 11 inches away from my mouth in a completely untreated space. Now let's see how effective the microphone and provided mount are at rejecting shocks. I'll start by tapping on my desk to see how much of that it can reject. And then I will tap on the boom arm. Some people may consider this thorough, but I consider it annoying. I am now going to tap on the body of the microphone to see if there are any kind of resonant frequencies. Now I am right on top of the microphone to exaggerate the proximity effect. The high-pass filter is off, and here's how it's sounding. Now I have turned on the 80 Hz high-pass filter, and here is how it's sounding. Back again on linear mode with no high-pass filter engaged, and here's how it sounds. And now I have the 160 Hz high-pass filter turned on, and here's how it's sounding. You should hear quite a bit of that low-end rumble and mud get cleared up. There you go, that's the high-pass filter. Now I want to see how the pad is engaged, so currently that is off. Now I have switched over to -10 dB, switching back to 0 dB right there. Going to minus 20 decibels right now, and then we will switch back to 0 decibels, and we are back to normal. Now I want to see if the provided foam windscreen impacts the tone of the recording. So right now the sE8 is 6 inches away from my mouth, and the foam is not installed, and here's how it's sounding. And now here is how the sE8 sounds at the exact same distance with the provided foam windscreen installed. And here is a second sample of the sE8 6 inches away from my mouth without the provided foam windscreen installed. And for good measure, here is the second example of the sE8 6 inches off with the provided foam windscreen. Now, like I always do, I'm going to do a quick spoken word comparison between the microphone we're reviewing and a couple other microphones that are available so we can hear how it stacks up against the competition and get an understanding of how this sits within the marketplace. Starting on the SE Electronics sE8, I am 6 inches off. The gain on the 18i20 is set at 1 o'clock, 24-bit, 48 kilohertz. Let's jump to the first mic. Starting on the Behringer C2, I am 6 inches off. Gain is still set at 1 o'clock. The microphone is in linear mode. This costs about $60 for a set, so $30 each. And here is how this sounds compared to the sE8. Back on the SE Electronics sE8, nothing has changed. Let's go to another microphone. Now I am on the Rode M2, 6 inches off, with the gain still set at 1 o'clock. Check the lower third. This microphone costs about $200 for a pair, so $100 each. And here is how this compares to the sE8. Let's go back and do a whole bunch more. Back for a palette cleanser on the SE Electronics sE8. Here is how it sounds. Check the lower third. Let's go to another one. Now we are on the little sibling to the sE8, the sE7. I am 6 inches off. Gain still set at 1 o'clock. Linear mode with no pad. This microphone costs about $230 for a set or $120 for a single. And here is how this sounds compared to its more expensive, bigger brother. All right, here's another palette cleanser on the sE8. Here is how it sounds. That should be enough. Let's go to the next one. Next, I am on the Lewitt LCT140 Air, 6 inches off, gain at 1 o'clock, linear mode without any pad engaged. This microphone costs about $160 for a single or $300 for a matched pair. And here is how this sounds compared to the sE8. Let's do quite a few more comparisons. Back on the sE8, this is the midpoint palette cleanser. Get a good feel for it, let it clear out your ears, and let's go to another microphone. Now I am on the Shure SM81, 6 inches off, gain at 1 o'clock, linear mode without the pad engaged. This microphone costs about $400 for one. And here is how it compares to a microphone that is $120 less expensive. That should be enough talking, a long enough example. Let's do some more tests. This is the sE8 again, nothing has changed. Make sure to check the lower third to see how much I boost each of these in post. Let's go to another microphone. Next up, I am on the Beyerdynamic MC930, 6 inches off, gain at 1 o'clock. I am in the linear mode with no high pass filter and no pad engaged. This microphone costs about $700 each. And here is how this compares to the SE Electronics sE8. I believe we have 2 more to go, so this is your penultimate palette cleanser. Here is how the sE8 sounds. You should have a good feel for it, and let's go to the second to last microphone. Now I am on the Neumann, KM184. I am 6 inches off, gain is still set at 1 o'clock. This microphone costs about $900 each or $1,600 for a pair, and here is how this compares to the sE8. Let's go back and do one more comparison. And you all know what the final microphone is going to be, so this is your final palette cleanser on the sE8. That should be enough. Let's go to the last mic, right? And finally, we are on the Neumann U87 Ai. This is a multi-pattern studio condenser mic, so it is not a fair comparison. I am 6 inches off, gain is set at 12 o'clock. Cardioid polar pattern, no pad, no filter. This microphone goes for about $3,700. Another reason it's not a fair comparison, but that should be enough of a control from video to video. That's it for the comparison section. Let's go ahead and jump to the music test. Searching for your perfect microphone. How could you ever think I'd do that to you? You've known me for 9 years. I've always been there, and I will always be there. Whenever you search, I'll be right there waiting for you. This is so creepy. This is so creepy. Let's go to the conclusion. All right, this microphone takes pretty much everything that I liked about the more affordable sE7, and it just improves on it and makes it better. And first up, as far as pros, for a small diaphragm condenser, 13 dBA self-noise is quite respectable. I also thought the sE8 did a really nice job in the untreated space. The off-axis coloration on this mic was also very inoffensive and natural sounding. I also didn't notice any kind of resonance issues when I tapped on the body of the microphone. On a very similar note, I thought the shock rejection, considering it wasn't using a shock mount, was pretty darn good. You're also getting a max SPL of 159 decibels, which is super loud. And lastly, if you do need the omnidirectional pattern, you just have to buy the Omni capsules and it is interchangeable. You don't need to buy a whole nother set of mics. And then as far as cons, this is more of an FYI because I point this out in every single SDC review, but because it is a small diaphragm condenser, it is terrible with plosives, it is terrible with wind noise, so if you have any of that around it, use a pop filter or use a windscreen. A second FYI here is the pad is not engaged or disengaged gradually, so if you're engaging or disengaging that, I would make sure the gain is all the way down or you have that channel muted. And now, what are my overall thoughts and opinions of the sE8? I would say that it offers a supportive low end, but it doesn't become loose or muddy. It is still very tight sounding. The midsection is nice and neutral. It isn't bumped, it isn't scooped. And then you get a little bit of a lift in the treble region, and those upper frequencies are handled so well. They don't sound overdone, they just sound natural. On the electric guitar, I think it offers more of a neutral sound with a good amount of clarity without being too bright. On the acoustic guitar, it is fantastic. I love this thing. It is clear, it is articulate, it is natural. It just works wonderfully on the acoustic guitar. For singing vocals, I absolutely loved it. I would classify it as more of a realistic sounding microphone. And finally, for spoken word, I'm going to say the word again, it comes across very natural. You do get a bit of heft in the bass. The mids are just wide open sounding without sounding scooped. And then you get this really clean and natural sounding upper frequency range. And to wrap up, would I recommend the SE Electronics sE8? What a big surprise! Yes, I would. For the price, I think this thing offers a tremendous amount of value. It just sounds so good. I liked this on every single sound source I put it in front of. So if you're looking for more of that neutral sound profile from your SDC, I think this thing sounds outstanding. On top of that, you do have 2 pads on here getting you that max SPL of 159 dB, and you have 2 high-pass filters at 80 or 160 Hz. And if you do need that omnidirectional pattern, you can just buy the capsules on their own, and it's a lot cheaper than buying a whole new set of microphones. So if you're in the market for more of that neutral-sounding SDC, I think the sE8 should be on your shortlist. Alright, that's all that I've got for you today. If you found this video fun, interesting, or helpful, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. Hated it, big ol' thumbs down. I don't know if you noticed, but I've been trying to mix up the videos and the gear that I'm reviewing so I don't just do USB mic, USB mic, USB mic. I'm doing an SDC, a preamp, a Q&A, a large diaphragm condenser, just to keep it interesting. If you've noticed that, I hope you enjoy it. If you haven't, hey, keep an eye out because it just changes every single week. Makes it a heck of a lot more fun for me too. Also, thank you to the members. Their support means that I am able to buy this gear to review it, so thank you to them, and thank you to you for coming by. I really do appreciate you taking the time out of your day to hang out with me and listen to the microphone. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye. Whoa, whoa, boop.